David, I missed you. I've been gone for a few weeks from the baseball game side of things, but I know you and Kurt had a lot of fun in Hoover. How's everything going? Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Roger, and glad to be on your show this morning. And yes, it was a great opportunity to get up to the Hoover Met and do a couple games with Kurt Bloom. But yes, we miss you tremendously. Understand that there's a priority. You've added one to your life, and a lot of fun times. And whenever you do get back, we're ready to have you at that time. So good to be on your show today.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's an exciting time for Alabama baseball. You get to the postseason, and before we talk about this past week in Hoover with the win against Missouri, the loss against Tennessee, just give us some overall thoughts on where you saw this team from some of the first games you called and the very cold temperatures we had in February to where we are now at this point, having gone through that gauntlet of its SEC schedule.
We did that. You made a lot of noise with in the frozen tundra game where you had everything on the beanie, three layers on. So that was a wonderful shot that will be etched in many Alabama baseball fans' memories. And I was wish I had all those layers on myself, but I was making light of that. But yes, the from 2024 to 2025, I felt like this team has drastically improved in Coach Rob Vaughn's second year. I think the premise for him coming out of the 24 year was to get more athletic with guys like Bryce Fowler, Richie Bonamolo, more defensively, as well as being able to be athletic and steal some bags, but also still have that power and balance. On the mound as well. And I think in 2025, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this, I think this team is much improved. I mean, 40 plus wins in your second year as a head coach is pretty phenomenal, especially as good as the SEC has been and also gotten better with the conference expansion of Oklahoma and Texas. But yes, I know you've been tracking and keeping up at the Hoover Med with the SEC tournament. It doesn't get much better than what the camaraderie. You've been a part of it for multiple years for a lot of teams, but just the excitement. I mean, I'm up there in the radio booth, but I got chills like seeing the fans, seeing all the tailgates, all the people coming up and getting excited about college baseball because kind of the mecca, the highlight of the SEC tournament of what it is, because that's just where all eyes are on it. And I felt like Alabama had a good start, and we'll talk a little bit about the ending for them in the single game elimination tournament.
Yeah, new format this year, and the Crimson Tide got to play in the very first game of this new format on Tuesday morning against Missouri. What stood out to you about a standout victory against the Missouri Tigers, starting with Tyler Fay and his good work on the mound?
Really was a great start by Talafay. Probably, in my opinion, his best start of the year. Went 6 innings, which was a season high for him. He had, for all intents and purposes, the last couple of starts for him had been really good, just not ended. I think Alabama has tried to extend his pitch count in the Florida series. Had a good start, but kind of ran into a little damage right there. But it was one of his, in my opinion, best starts. He had to really gut and compete because he was coming off short rest. And I think a lot of the pressure was really on Alabama, not for to say from a resume or needed to win it, but it was one of those you couldn't lose it from that type of mentality. And a team like Missouri, who 16, they're last in the SEC, but they were going to throw everything in the kitchen sink because their loss right there was the end of their season, and they to have any hopes they were going to do everything that they could, and actually were playing some better baseball and threw one of their best arms in Sam Horn, who was a two way player, a two-way from a football standpoint, quarterback competition, and also big guy throwing 96, 97 for 3 innings. So I mean, it was a very uh, a very good pitching performance by Sam Horn. He walked a couple of guys, but the offense came alive. Got Justin LeBron and Cade Snell got a couple of hits, and then Brady Neal ended up kind of pushing the game out with a home run late in the game. So a good quality win, 4-1 for Alabama to then get to the next game in Tennessee.
Yeah, and the Tennessee game had a lot of crazy twists and turns in the end. Tennessee eventually, after falling behind, Alabama was able to surge back, and then Alabama had a late surge as well, even in the ninth inning, as you almost thought maybe this would be a run rule game. A great rally for the Crimson Tide in the ninth. So a pretty hard fought battle on Wednesday afternoon, and I'm sure for you, just keeping up with all the twists and turns, it was a lot on Wednesday.
It was a very exciting game. I think for both clubs that have very similar resumes, and obviously let's be real, it's a rivalry in and of itself. No matter where you line it up, in Alabama and Tennessee, where Tennessee during the season had taken the series 2 of 3. But both teams played really well, and I think the thing for Tennessee, we were talking about it on the radio broadcast prior to getting going, was Tennessee was their last 6 of 7 SEC uh, matchups had dropped the series. So they're not playing some of the best brand of baseball. Started out red hot, but just kind of gone and kind of had a lull in the valley. And we were talking about, hey, is that good? Is that bad? And I think for them having the rest to kind of recalibrate, clearly from an offensive perspective was really good. And it was a very strong, a good start by Aiden Vinatieri. But in those type of moments for Alabama, it's, you kind of try to piece it together because you're not going to throw I think there was a lot of discussion on, hey, are we going to start weakening guys like Riley Quick because we started Tyler Fay? But I think that the coaching staff made the right call. You don't want to start an ace in the hole and Riley Quick, especially coming off of injury last year. But Tennessee decided to start their weekend guy, Marcus Phillips, which again is a little the game within the game and kind of telling you jockeying for position. And what we're going to talk about is Tennessee felt like they had to have this in a bad way. That's why they started Marcus Phillips. He delivered. I mean, it was 3 innings of dominant performance, but the Tide got the pitch count up, and eventually, because he was on short rest, got him out of the game. And yes, like you said, it was back and forth offense, but Tennessee just every single inning was putting pressure uh, on the Tide bullpen, and you saw a lot of arms, and eventually Tennessee gets the win late. But Alabama, good performance, but just not enough against a very good Tennessee Vols.
So with the new format, unfortunately, no losers bracket to really work your way out of, or try and make it to the weekend at the Hoover Met. The SEC tournament comes to a close, and now, David, we're all waiting on what's coming up on Monday, Selection Monday on Memorial Day for the NCAA tournament. Just give us your thoughts on where Alabama could be standing, getting ready for that tournament. Latest projections have had Alabama as a number 2 seed for the tournament, but Crimson Tide have also built up a resume you typically see for one of the top 16 seeds that get to host.
That's exactly right. And I was looking at one stat this morning that was they were talking about since 2021 in selection committees, any SEC team that had won 16 games had always been a host. Now, I think that's a great stat, but I think that the lining in that for Alabama is, yes, they fall into that category, but also Ole Miss and Tennessee fall into that category too. Which that's, in my opinion, these are the teams. If you're an Alabama fan, that you're kind of watching as this play. We can't do anything. Alabama fans can't do anything at this point, so you're watching and rooting against the Tennessee, the Ole Miss. The other teams that are jockeying position outside the conference are Georgia Tech, who's right now, by most prognosticators, in that 15-16 last host site bid, and also TCU. So you really want to see the teams, hopefully TCU and Georgia Tech lose in their conference tournament. I think that most of those teams are kicking off today in their tournament. So, but yes, selection will be on Monday, and I think the reality, and I'm being really honest, I think it's a coin flip. It's 50-50 for Alabama. I think their resume speaks for itself. Went 40 plus wins and flawless in midweeks. And I think you also have to look at, if you peel the onion back a little bit more, look at the midweeks that Alabama won. They beat Southern Miss, who's going to be a host. They beat some really good in-state Alabama teams, and going 24-1 in non-conference. Never lost a SEC, sorry, never got swept in an SEC series, which I think there's a lot to be said about that because that's kind of the Tennessee. They're looking at that Tennessee resume of the, just complete up and down and consistency of model. But again, I think one little small nugget in this, I thought I'd mention it just because we have a couple of former Alabama alums. The selection committee is chaired by Jay Artigas from southeastern Louisiana, which my former one of the assistant coaches, Bobby Barbier, is the head coach there, and also Taylor Dugas. So I'm not saying there's sweet whispers in there, but I think there's a good selection committee in there. I think that that's another discussion for another day. Is acting ads on selection committees, but you have to find somebody that has good pulse of what's going on in each and every sport.
Well, David, of course, has his tie on because he's working the phones. It's serious business trying to get Alabama baseball back to the Joe coming up this year. With that as well, a great year for the Crimson Tide individually. We've talked about the star power of Justin LeBron all throughout the year. He's all SEC second team. You also get to see honors for Cade Snell, Carson Osmer, Riley Quick. Just some really good honors from the SEC and kind of with Carson Osmer as well. Where would this Alabama team be without him closing out and finishing games at the end of the ball game?
Carson Osmer, I think you could make a case of was probably for Alabama the biggest portal get for them, and I think most of us probably going into the season didn't really know, and that's the kind of the beauty or the unknown of the transfer portal. You don't know some of these guys take it to the next step, and obviously he had a strong career at Penn in Carson Osmer, but man, he's just been the anchor in the back end for games. It's just one of those as a player. I'm a former, offensive guy, and just to know that, hey, if we have any lead going into the ninth inning, you're not stressing out as much. And Carson Osmer, man, he's just been good all year. It's been very few times. And just the demeanor he has on the mound is just you can feel it. Not it doesn't feel like he at any moment gets to him, and they're going to need him in postseason play because there's going to be some tough moments. There's going to be some uh, 1 or 2 run games, and having a guy like Stopper to literally put in the game. And he's not just a ninth inning guy. The Tides used him in the eighth and ninth inning when needed. And he did a really good job in the Missouri game to shut down a team that was surging at the moment. So, yeah, Cade Snell, I think he's been really all SEC selection, first team. And man, he's just been kind of this model of consistency, the captain for Alabama, leading in batting average. But just it just seems like everybody falls in line with him. And Justin LeBron, I think everybody, the headlines talking all the stats and everything, but what metric for me is the most consistent for Justin LeBron is the RBIs, the ability to get hits when the Tide needed it the most.
He absolutely did. So the Crimson Tide again await its fate for the NCAA tournament coming up with Monday's selection show, and then after that, it's time for a regional, hopefully a super regional, and then a trip to Omaha after that. That certainly would be the plan. And David, you've done great work for us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. All the best with what's coming up, and thank you for the time you've given us today on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Roll Tide.
Roger, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you soon.